Hey everybody, I am here today with Jen Harman, who is a solo Ankeny agent, and she's one of our new agent success coaches who has been in this role for a few years now. And I'm excited to dig in with her as we kind of get back to the basics and talking about for new agents, how do we get those systems down? What is it going to take to get our businesses up and going? So, Jen, welcome. Thank you for joining us today.
Wow, thank you very much for the invitation.
You bet. So tell us a little bit about yourself. How long have you been in this business? What did you do before real estate? And how long have you been a success coach?
I have been a real estate agent for just about 5 years now. And before that, I was a mortgage underwriter and manager for a big bank here in town. So a lot of things on the lending side, brought me into real estate. And I'm so glad I made the switch. And I've been a success coach here for about 3 years.
Awesome. And I know we have definitely relied on you for that lending knowledge and expertise. You've been a huge asset to us in the Connect space and just our office, just having that background. So that's pretty awesome. You've been selling now for several years and you do a little bit in new construction too. Tell us about your collaborations there.
I was fortunate enough when I began as an agent to be plucked out of the solo space and worked with a seasoned agent, Raj Wheeler, and Ethan Hochul to help with their builder that they have a longstanding relationship with. So that was a lot of new homes that were getting built at the time. So that allowed me to do marketing, open houses, and sit on the listing seller representation side for the most part
Yeah.
with that.
Yeah, that's awesome, and that's also another kind of niche area where I know we've really tapped into your knowledge on as new agents explore those opportunities, or even just like open house opportunities and things like that. So, well, we're excited to have you here, and really today I just wanted us to have a real conversation about new agents, thinking of those in their first and second year, getting their businesses launched. What does it take? You have a keen insight and an interesting perspective because you honestly get to do a lot of the boots on the ground work with new agents as a new agent success coach. And so I'm curious to kind of pick your brain and have you share with others what are some common things you see that they're wrestling through those first couple of years, and when you look back and you can think about some of the agents who you've seen realize a bit of success because you've been doing this for 3 years now, what are some characteristics or traits that you see in them that help them get to that place where like, okay, they're like flying the nest, they're able to like get their business up and going. So that's pretty broad and vague in general, but I want to just like toss that back to you and have you tell us what you think.
Yeah, so with new agents, particularly, they have just come out of so many hours of real estate classes. They've, miraculously passed their exam, and then getting into the real world, getting your boots on the ground is figuring out how to apply all of that or even apply things that you did not learn in real estate school into
Yeah.
how you help buyers and sellers. So that's really where our coaching and all of our resources come in to give people that springboard of, the knowledge that you are required to know, by our regulatory commission. But
Mhm.
now here are the things that you really need to know to be able to make phone calls and earn people's business.
Yeah,
So
I think that's a good distinction because there are, gosh, when I look back to taking my classes and taking, the test and everything, I, not to be discouraging, but in any way, but like, I just don't recall a ton. I feel like most of what I learned was from people like you who were a step ahead of me or other agents in the office and getting out there and just doing it. And so you talked about like what you learned and applying it, but then like what you really need to learn. And so some of those like what you really need to learn things are as basic as how to open a lockbox or how to
yeah,
request a showing, and you do help with some of that.
yeah,
But yeah, elaborate on that a bit.
it is just such a milestone to get through the classes and pass your test, and then decide on a brokerage to work with. It feels like, I got it. I've got my license. And then it is truly terrifying. Your first family member
Right.
says, "Hey, we've been kind of thinking about buying," and it's like, well, what am I supposed to
Yeah,
do?
now what?
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. So just giving some of that information, but also working with agents on confidence. And that's whether they're a younger agent that we seem to have a lot of,
Mhm.
full of vim, vigor, hunger, enthusiasm, and even more established people, this being a second career for them, just helping manage that confidence that, yes, you can do it, but um, it all builds on itself. You can't learn how to work with customers on day one of real estate school. You do have to have
Mhm.
that foundation, and then you can move on to some of these other things that Century 21 as an organization works really hard to make sure that we have consistent, clear, recordings and training available for everybody that joins us.
Mhm. Yeah, and I think that's a really good point because this is a people business, and so I know some of the, when I just think about certain people in our walls who I'm like, wow, they're out there, they're doing it now. I think a lot of what helps with that success is being able to just professionally navigate working with people, even if you don't know all of the things, because you're not going to know all the things. You don't know all the things. I don't know all the things. Raj doesn't even know all the things. He knows a lot, and we learn a lot from him.
Mhm.
But none of us knows all the things. But if we know how to work with people, that can be a huge springboard for success, in my opinion. Um, and confidence is so much a part of that, even if, on the inside you're terrified and you're like, I have no idea how to fill out this purchase agreement.
Right, but we've got those resources, and as success coaches, we're all building those relationships with new agents to make sure they're comfortable coming to us. We are there to be that person to send a text at 9 o'clock at night on your first offer and say, I'm starting to write this. Can you jump on a Zoom and help me through this? We can go through those steps in our actual buyer overview sessions. But until you've got your real offer, that you need to write, you just need to have that resource. So um yeah, those beginning things where you're actually putting all of those things into place. I love that we have an organization that supports us all in being um that kind of resource for our agents.
Sure. And it's very much like, when you are a new agent, you're kind of learning how to fly the plane while you're still in the air, or while you're in the air. And that is exactly how our agents start. They get out there. We want to know right away if they have somebody, a relative, parents, whoever, best friend, that has been waiting for them to get their license, because they're raising their hand now and they're saying, "Oh, you're official? Great! Can we go look at this house?" Like, I think we can. I don't know.
Yes.
And so they are literally learning how to fly the plane while it's in the air, and doing things like that. Like, yeah, I guess I can go show this house.
Mhm.
And then behind the scenes, need to figure out this lockbox, need to figure out how to request the showing. What do I take? All of those kinds of things. And so, since they're doing that, since they're having to do both simultaneously, from the coaching perspective, like, what is your best advice in terms of how can they tackle doing both? And are there like specific systems or disciplines or plans that they need to have in place as they're laying that groundwork while also out there in the field learning and doing?
Yeah. Number one is that while it's everybody's wildest dream come true, that the second I get my license, I've got 3 or 4 customers, teed up to become clients and go through this process. It's also one of the most terrifying, because you
Mhm.
don't know. So as you're, preparing that plane for liftoff and you're just hoping for the best, um, there's like I said, not that is everyone's wildest fantasy, but it doesn't usually happen that way. So,
Right.
the first couple of months are really about building that foundation so that in 90 to 120 days, you do have some of these leads and contacts turning into clients that you can work with. So, it's laying all of that groundwork kind of at a time when maybe you're not sure why you're doing those things, but you're learning that whole time. So from my seat, I know when I started, I felt like that first 90 days was a lot of talking to people, potential clients, but it
Mhm.
was also using all of our resources, which initially can feel very overwhelming.
Mhm.
Before we had the forge, there was all
Mhm.
these resources. Um, but really digging in and learning everything you can about that, immersing yourself in that so that at least you understand how to use your MLS, your matrix, and
Mhm.
understand some of the market data and how to find those things on your own during times when you don't have the phone ringing saying, "Can you show me this property?" It's you're out
Mhm.
there looking to see. And so spending what I would consider that downtime in really plugging into all of the resources that we make available to people and all of the people that we make available to people to learn, whether that's shadowing other agents or coaches. Initially, you've got all of these side by side sit downs with all of the departments to learn how this all works together. But it should be your full-time job. I know a lot of people
Mhm.
have to juggle a little bit initially to keep income coming in. That's true.
Mhm.
But,
Mhm.
for this big reward is some sacrifice, so people
Yeah.
really are almost doing 2 full-time jobs at that time of starting a business, but continuing keeping the lights on at home.
Yeah, and I think that's important to point out because a lot of our new agents might find themselves in that space where they're transitioning away from something or scaling back from a full-time to part-time as this ramps up.
Mhm.
If they are in a position where it's like, okay, this is it, I'm all in, which is amazing, to have that ability to do that, then it begs a whole nother question of like, well, what am I supposed to do with my day? What does that look like? Which
Yeah.
is, we can get to that, but I along those lines of agents who are kind of dealing with that juggle, I saw a quote recently that it made me think of some of our folks in that position. It said something along the lines of like, um, if you are okay with getting up every day and going and building somebody else's business at 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. or whatever, then you got to make it a priority to get up for your own from 5 a.m. to 7 p.m. And the whole point of it is if you know that this is the big dream and this is what you're working towards, there are going to be sacrifices, and sometimes it means, prioritizing yourself and your business, and making space for that, truly creating space
Yeah.
for that, because otherwise everything is going to be, I mean, it takes time and energy and effort and availability and flexibility and all of that anyway.
Mhm.
But when you've got a 9 to 5 that keeps you away from serving clients or away from learning and plugging in or shadowing opportunities or whatever, it's just going to be take that much longer. So you have to kind of
Yeah.
weigh the trade-offs with that for
It
sure.
feels like a catch-22 if you are not all in and committed to making that work. I came into
Hmm.
the business during a time when everything shut down for a period of time. So I had my license about 4 months before COVID.
Hmm.
So that was kind of an additional enforced time of being able to go back and go through all these systems and learn everything I can so that when you get that phone call, you're ready to go. You have buyer packets ready, you have seller packets ready, you know what the market looks like in most of the places that a customer could be calling you about. Um,
Yeah, you're not scrambling at the last minute of trying
right.
to figure out, now what do I do?
Yeah, yeah, and we do such a great job with the systems, talking to people about getting that database started, and that's something that we, um, you know, really counsel on day 1 to get going. Who do you know who? And it could be 2
Mhm.
pages worth of just anybody that you've got that you can reach out to and let know what your new endeavor is. The Getting the database is such a huge part of starting. And even though you don't know exactly what you're going to do with those people or what kind of
Mhm.
information you're going to send to them, we've got so many great resources on how to do that, whether it's the introduction letter that we work on kind of in that beginning part of onboarding, or, that ultimately becomes your mailing list for
Mhm.
just any other market information. That's huge.
Yeah.
And it's
I
really
think
it's
it
really the crux of any business, right? Is that database, that sphere of influence, that
Yep.
who you interact with.
Exactly. And I think that that's so true. Step one, get all your people in one place. One literal place, whether it's an Excel sheet like that we provide, or it's your own CRM or a CRM that your team is using if you're on a team. Whatever that might look like, having all those people in one place is, really foundational to being able to then leverage that database to be able to, do mailings or pop buys or personal notes or whatever it is that you're going to do. And you might be thinking, okay, well, what should I be doing with those people? Well, again, those are things that we talk through when we go through your 5 spokes lead gen plan.
Mhm.
And so sometimes we get some agents in here who are really gung ho. We do 5 spokes right away
Mhm.
as a part of their business planning through the foundation series. And it gets to be 6, 12 months down the road. We're doing check ins or reviews. And that is always a question. How are your spokes looking? How have those been? And I mean, I couldn't put a number on it, but it is not uncommon that agents kind of stray away from that. Oh, yeah, I think I was going to do da 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 da. And so I know I, as a coach, and you too, I'm sure, are constantly pointing people back to what are your spokes? Are you doing open houses? How many, are you sticking to your action plan? So getting those things in writing and getting them nailed down, translating them onto your calendar so that they, are there and they happen. I mean, obviously it all takes execution, but that's step one. And that's not like the fun, sexy part of this job
No.
of being an entrepreneur.
I feel like that is one of those things that it's one of the most, paralyzing, anxiety producing things that you do when you very first start is you're giving this 5 spokes presentation at Connect
Mhm.
um, or just with your coach. And you feel like I don't even know enough to know what these should be. But what I love so much about it is that we're not admonishing people to run a business a certain way. Um,
Mhm.
we know all of the components of making it successful. So, we take people's unique ability. I know we talk about that a lot,
Mhm.
and let people really get comfortable with being who they are. Every person has value. How are they going to translate that value into real estate business for themselves? So you don't have to be
Mhm.
a salesperson. You don't have to be, just a grade A extrovert. You don't have to be big on social media to do any of these things.
Mhm.
And the 5 spokes is so great that it is that grounding. If somebody ever says, "What should I be doing all day?" I had an open house on Sunday, but nobody came through. I don't know what else to do. I mean, those 5 spokes, you go directly back to that. And if you're not generating business from that, then you probably do need to dig in a little bit more and flesh out some of those ideas and, really be working on it rather than maybe just staring at it, hoping for things to happen.
Right. I mean, that is so true. It takes action. So you can come to all the classes, do all the things, come to all the meetings, but if you're not willing to act on your plans, then it's for nothing. And so I think, that the 5 spokes, not only do you need to come up with the plan and have written action plans for each spoke, that literally becomes a new agent's to-do list.
Yes.
And so that is a question they ask so often is what should my days look like? What do I do all day now that it's so different than being on the
Mhm.
on the clock type of job. And really what you do until you're and even while you're working with clients through transactions, you work those spokes. You prioritize 1 to 2 hours of lead gen and lead incubation every single day. And if you do that and you're working your action plans as if they are to-do lists, you will see results. And it's pretty exciting when that happens for our new agents. I know
Mhm.
you're as much of a celebrator as I am, and cheerleader of these
Mhm.
new agents when they have all of their firsts, and it's pretty exciting to be able to see that grow for them for sure.
Yes.
We've talked a little bit about sometimes agents are juggling maybe other priorities, jobs, transitioning away from that. But are there other common barriers that you see from the coaching perspective that might kind of inhibit growth as even just in getting their business up and going? Because, I mean, truthfully, this is no secret. Not every agent makes it. And so, what are some of those barriers that you see from your perspective that um, agents should maybe be mindful of and work towards overcoming?
I think mental health is number one. You've got to come into this in a good place in yourself. This isn't
Mhm.
going to make you feel good about yourself if you're not already there.
That's a really good point. Yeah.
It just makes it that much harder. So, and that goes into kind of the confidence of, can I do this? Do I want to do this? How badly do I want
Hmm.
to do this? Am I determined enough to do these things, even though I might be uncomfortable because I'm really young and none of my friends can afford houses? So I'm sending letters to these older people, telling them that I'm in real estate now and I've never even bought a house,
Hmm.
so it is some of that confidence building and knowledge building. So getting out of their own way, I
Hmm.
think is because, human nature is to kind of put up sort of self-limiting beliefs of, how they shouldn't use me. I'm not a good person to talk to about this. And you really have to be a good cheerleader in yourself and believe in all the training that you've been through and all of the people that believed you could do this. Because again, we don't sign up every agent that knocks on our door. We
Right.
believed in you and you believed in yourself to do this. So just getting your head straight and really believing in that and then going out and doing the things. So to your earlier point of execution, we do the Colby and it isn't necessarily, you can be somebody who introspectively thinks about doing things and kind of cautiously, moves forward on things. That's fine. That's a
Hmm.
unique ability that we need those people. I'm probably one of those. Um, but you really do have to be comfortable getting uncomfortable.
Hmm.
And I know from my first conversations with Angela and Whitney when I started that that was made very clear. And you may not believe it until you start seeing it as you're getting in, saying, I'm embarrassed to ask. I don't know who to ask
Hmm.
about this. Oh, I should know this. No, and that's why we have the designated, staff and coaches to be able to give you sort of a more private one-on-one lesson if that's what you're more comfortable with.
Hmm. Yeah, and I think there's value in being amongst your peers too. I mean, it's kind of a catch 22 because we have what is now our reconnect space with an after party, and people in their first couple of years can stay after, ask their questions that maybe they're not really comfortable asking in front of everybody, but amongst peers and other people who are in that same path of business, and it's both. It can be both comforting and also kind of discouraging because one of the things I see a lot, I think it is a barrier to growth, is when agents find themselves comparing themselves to their peers and what others are doing. And
Yeah,
so, gosh, I've been in the same amount of time and they already have three pendings, and I don't even have one client that I'm working with, or, it's human nature. It's
yeah.
normal. I struggled with it. I was 6 months in, had one part of a deal that I was basically like, looped in on with an agent who was super gracious. And I was feeling like, oh my gosh, am I going to be able to cut it? And so all of that is normal. The thing is you can't dwell there too long
Correct.
because it can send you in a tailspin, and I do see people give up at that point,
Yeah.
or make rash decisions that they hope will be a quick fix or whatever, and really that's the time to recenter and remember, what's my why did I set out to do this in the first place, and to
Mhm.
your point, that the mental health issue and having your head in the right space and a realistic view of what this career looks like, because sometimes people are a bit disillusioned. I don't feel like coming into our doors they should be, because we're pretty uh, real and upfront about what it looks like, in terms of timeline and what's typical and kind of what it takes, but sometimes people do have those misconceptions about, oh, this seems fun. I like to watch HGTV. I'll be pretty good at this.
Well,
Easy money.
yeah, and it seems fun as you're with those agents that have been here 6 months, and maybe you're all in the same boat, and nobody's had any, really tremendous wins.
Mhm.
But the second a peer starts having a little more success, you're happy for them, but you're thinking, what is it that I am doing or not doing? You know, and so yes, it's the headspace, and it is, you have to put on blinders on that and just say, what am I going to do about this? And
Mhm.
I know people have frequent check-ins with me or with you, talking about, do I need to tweak something here? And that's where we do go back and look at five spokes and figure out how
Yep.
specific and detailed, and is there a piece of that, that's missing? Because we've all identified, like with social media, yeah, you can post 3 times a week, but if there's no call to action, or some of the other authenticity pieces, it's just going out into space and it's not driving the business.
Right.
So yeah, your results can speak to, I know you have a plan and you come to all the meetings and you're doing all the things, but surely there's something else, because with our plans and with how we do things and the resources that we have, we really do see movement within that 6 to 9 month period on
Mhm.
anyone who is really applying themselves to these things.
Yeah. And it goes back to, something Dylan has spoken on, and there's a podcast out there about the two economies, and living in a results-based economy. And as entrepreneurs, that's really where we are. And we've said it a lot around here. If it is to be, it's up to me. And I think that's the big takeaway, for new agents, and especially just thinking about getting your systems down, laying the foundation, getting your head right. Those are all going to be crucial elements for realizing success in your first couple years in this business. So, Jen, I really appreciate the insights that you have shared with us today. Definitely appreciate your role as a success coach within our walls. Thank you so much for being here with us today and sharing, and everything you do to pour into our agents. We appreciate you.
Well, thank you very much. It's been my pleasure.